Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us here at Remnant House, the home of the strong and the very courageous, for our weekly news update. Always a pleasure and a privilege. And we don't have thunderstorms, we don't have lightning at the moment, although give it an hour, we might. So we're going to slip this in right underneath the weather. My apologies for missing our normal time on Monday evenings. And hopefully you can hear me okay. Somebody give me a 5x5 out there. Hopefully all of you were able to make the transition to this broadcast. And if you couldn't, well, that's okay. We're glad you stopped by sometime throughout the week. After all, that's the entire point, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? It is to put this out there once a week. Now, many people were completely disconnected from the news, which frankly, we think that's a little too far to one side. And then there were those that, like me, maybe you were like me, a newsie, you were getting updates every 5 minutes. You were getting every update. You were getting this guy going, "Are you serious?" and all kinds of other stuff, right? And every conversation and every debate, and it just drove you bananas. So you went from one extreme to the other. And so what we came up with years ago was this median, if you will, just sort of middle of the road. And the weekly news update has turned into, I think, one of my favorite broadcasts, the hardest one I have to do every week, for sure. I love you all. Thank you so much for giving me the 5x5. Thanks for hanging out with us. Definitely the hardest broadcast I have to do. The most preparation for, the most work goes into it. So, but it is a labor of love, and I love you guys. So that's why we do this, right? Because we certainly don't have any commercial advertising or anything on here that is promoting it. So again, thank you all, family, for hanging out. And don't forget, of course, we have this handy website that we put together. And of course, remnantwatch.com is there for you to keep track of the stories that we cover every single week. And at the very top, you'll have that banner with this handsome guy, that updated photograph. Mama made me update it. And there you go. We've got the banner that you can get to the latest broadcast, of course, our top story. And don't forget our survival guides. Folks, this continues to be a challenge. We continue to put forth stories every week where, again, we're going to look at one today. There's just too many things that have gone wrong. So we need to be paying attention in this time. Of course, you can search back in previous articles right there. And that's a handy tool for those of you that are, like I said, newsies, watching, tracking patterns. If you're like me, you're one of those weird pattern tracker kind of guys, right? And maybe you're paying attention to certain things that are happening from a biblical perspective. And that's one of the things that we like to say around here. Of course, we like to take what we call the 10,000 foot view, right? And so we like to be informed without being overwhelmed. After all, the scripture tells us to be anxious for nothing, but by prayer and supplication make your need known unto Elohim. And so our top story tonight is, of course, attention being drawn right back to the Middle East again. And Erdogan is now going out very publicly and very vocally vowing a resolute fight for Palestinian statehood. And with the upcoming midterms and the strong possibility of a Netanyahu defeat in the upcoming Israeli elections, this is looking more likely than ever. Erdogan vows a resolute fight for a Palestinian state as Abbas hails the Mecca Pact. And of course, we're going to talk about that here in a moment. Turkish president says Ankara will keep backing Palestinian statehood while warning against moves that threaten holy sites and the future of a two-state solution. So there is a lot of rumbling going on right now about the holy sites, if you will. Of course, Jerusalem being critical in this. And of course, Zechariah prophesies that Jerusalem will remain a cup of trembling. And so I believe that is perpetual. Turkish President Recep Erdogan has reaffirmed Turkey's support for an independent Palestinian state in a meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who described the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement as very important. And speaking at a joint news conference in Ankara with Palestinian President Abbas on Wednesday, Erdogan said Turkey would resolutely work for a sovereign and geographically contiguous Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, based on the 1967 border. So Erdogan said the existence of a sovereign Palestinian state is being undermined by Israel, and the international community cannot ignore or remain indifferent to the situation. So stay tuned, folks, because again, this is the kind of stuff. These are fighting words, right, guys? We already know that in this part of the world, these are fighting words, and we already know that there are forces at work looking to create more, as we say in Spanish, hebulu, okay, more problems, more, and they say in Hebrew, balagan, okay, same thing, more balagan, more problems, all right, things you don't want, more mistakes and issues going on in the region. And I wonder if we're heading into more of that, guys. I'd love your comments on this, because I think that, yeah, I agree with you, David. I think that them's fighting words. I think that you're asking for it with some of these things. So again, and we continue to see the poke in the eye effect that keeps going on. In the meantime, we continue to see also other efforts, again, to bring about some type of peace plan. So we do see Jared Kushner, of course, the son-in-law of the president, out there meeting with Hamas leaders, according to this report put out by Al Jazeera, saying that they met in Egypt to push Trump's Gaza plan. Now, this is being pushed over the Netanyahu government's objection. So you have to understand that the public opinion is swaying away from the Netanyahu government, and it looks like the Trump administration is taking advantage of this momentum shift, and it may be actually accelerating that momentum shift because the policies of Netanyahu have backfired so badly. And after a meeting with U.S. envoy, Hamas says it's called on the board of peace to compel Israel to accept the plan. So now, and this is why Israel always gets nervous around these, different groups, because usually they get flipped and the leverage is placed the other way. Hamas leaders have met in Egypt with U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law and Mideast envoy Jared Kushner, who is seeking to push a peace plan for Gaza that Israel has rejected. So just keep that in mind. A Palestinian source told Al Jazeera on Sunday that Hamas's leadership briefed Kushner on Israel's ceasefire violations in Gaza. The source also stated that Kushner said the U.S. rejects any plan to displace Gaza residents. So they're reaffirming that Gaza residents do not need to leave the area. However, it does look like they have made that incredibly difficult. Now, how many of you would like to live in that war-torn part of the world right now? I sure wouldn't want to do that. And frankly, neither do a lot of other people. So while on the one hand, they can say all they want, that they can stay, look at the conditions that they have to stay in. And of course, Trump is really getting upset at Netanyahu these days because he really sees him as an obstacle to what he's trying to do in terms of building a legacy in the Middle East. And Trump said to call Netanyahu, quote, his own worst enemy, as prime minister vies for election endorsement, and he didn't get it. So, folks, President Trump did not endorse Netanyahu in this. At least he hasn't so far, and I doubt that he will, because Netanyahu has not been the partner that I think Trump wanted. Trump unwilling to back Premier's re-election bid due to poor performance in the polls, Axios reports, and Prime Minister's aide reportedly insists to President he's winning. Well, they have some questions. U.S. President Donald Trump referred to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as his own worst enemy recently, according to sources close to the president, in a blow to Netanyahu's hopes that the White House will endorse him ahead of his October 27th re-election bid. So there are a couple of elections, of course, that are coming up very shortly that are going to affect national, international policy. Of course, the United States has its midterms, which, of course, can potentially swing Congress and swing the Senate. But then you also have the election that is going on in Israel. So both of those have a massive impact potential on the conflict that is going on in the Middle East. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail. Let's see what we have coming up. And Trump has said that the Navy, of course, has 100. We have total control. We've achieved total control. We're totally fantastic. It's been fantastic. We're in total control right now. Okay, U.S. 100% control of Strait of Hormuz. That's what he reported. That's what we got from the Trump administration on August 11th. U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters at the White House on Monday, which, by the way, just to remind everybody, the Straits of Hormuz, the area outside Iran, where they're all sort of fighting over, that area where they have to navigate those ships with oil through that area, was already open before they started this conflict. Just to remind everyone that we're fighting to get back to where we started. Just as a point here. And of course, he's claiming that the Navy has 100% control of the Strait of Hormuz and is enforcing an infallible blockade of Iranian ports that he characterized as a, quote, steel wall. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of pushback on that story. There's a whole lot of pushback going on in the international community. And in fact, NBC News is reporting, and of course, they're no friends of the president, so they're certainly going to jump on that opportunity, aren't they? Well, here we go, folks. Help. Here we go. Left, right. Ready? Iran rejects delusions after Trump says he wants the Strait of Hormuz to be a U.S. territory. As long as you do not accept the reality of defeat and stop indulging in delusions, Iran will continue to enforce the blockade, Iran's deputy foreign minister said. So while they're talking about that they're blockading, Iran is under a completely different impression. A defiant Iran called on the U.S. to accept the reality of defeat and stop indulging in delusions after President Donald Trump suggested that he would soon declare the Strait of Hormuz a territory of the United States, a crucial waterway that handled 1/5 of the world's oil before the war cannot be seized with a tweet, nor with an aircraft carrier, nor by issuing an order, nor through an election speech. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Gazem Garababadi, boy, that's a name, said in a post on X earlier on Saturday. I found out that not everybody even knows about X. Did you know some people don't even know about X? Now, I just opened an X account. So if you're watching us, and if we've rebroadcast on X, I probably have like 10 followers. So if you're on X, go find me, man. I got to start promoting our X channel because I just created it. But I noticed that a lot of people don't even know it's there, which is crazy. It used to be Twitter. Now it's X. Okay. I don't know if it's any good, but whatever. It's there. So we use it for whatever it's worth. Now, Iran is now stepping into a BRICS agreement. Look at what's going on here, guys. And we've been talking about this for a while, right? So BRICS kind of went quiet in the news. We didn't talk a lot about BRICS for really the last year. We've not talked a lot about BRICS. You guys notice that? They've not really had a lot of stories in the news. Do you think they just went away? You think they just gave up? They just quit because Donald Trump won? No. Iran looks to ramp up economic alliance with BRICS nations as war with the U.S. drags on. And on Thursday, Central Bank of Iran Governor Hamati announced Iran will soon join the BRICS New Development Bank, aiming to strengthen economic alliances 6 months into the country's war with the U.S. and Israel. And of course, you all know that China and Russia are no friends to the United States in this conflict, and they certainly are supportive of Iran. So it looks pretty promising that they're going to be able to develop that alliance. And that bodes poorly for world affairs. So, folks, these are the kinds of things we got to pay attention to because they're coming quick, right? And Iran has, of course, struck another boat in the Strait of Hormuz, according to this report from CBS News, as Israel steps up Lebanon attack. So Iran launched a strike against an oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz on Friday. According to the United Arab Emirates, the ship belongs to state-owned oil giant Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. And, of course, anything affiliated with, oh, gosh, I don't know what they're doing here. So, sorry, guys. Sometimes these stories, especially, I hate to say this, sorry, not trying to pick on any networks, but NBC and CBS, CBS is constantly bad stuff, and NBC is never a blessed choice. So, you got to take these sources with a grain of salt and a tongue in cheek. Just saying, be careful that you don't take them too seriously. That's why we like to, laugh a little bit about some of this because, again, Psalm 2 tells us that the king sits in the heavens and laughs at the plans of men. Now, look at this. Gulf states have a different reality that they're dealing with. So it's one thing for us to say from Washington, it's been fantastic. We're totally in control of the Straits of Hormuz. You can say that all you want. Here's what the Gulf states know. Gulf states accept a new normal in Hormuz. Okay. And Persian Gulf energy producers are concluding that Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz will become permanent, disrupting their oil and gas exports and global energy supplies indefinitely, the Wall Street Journal reports. So the problem is they worry the alternative, going back to war, would be worse. So what do they got for a choice? They got to come up with a different waterway, got a different exit point for their oil. And I believe they'll be breakneck speed producing just that. So they can have alternatives to even going through the Strait of Hormuz. So Strait of Hormuz will become useless by the time they're done. It will. They'll come up with a whole different program and a whole different plan to come up with a whole different place to go out with their oil. Watch. I'm sure it's already underway. And at some point, that will no longer be a key waterway. So Iran will eventually lose that because no one will care. And then it can be economically isolated. So seeing that and intelligently foretelling that and expecting that, they decided to team up with BRICS. Makes sense. I would tell them to do that. That's exactly what I would advise. I would say, go find friends because you got a lot of enemies. So you better go find some allies and you better find them quick. U.S. will hit Iran economically. So you see it's coming for them and they know it in ways they have never seen next week, according to the Treasury Secretary. So it's going to be a 1-2 punch, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, in teasing unprecedented new economic actions against Iran as negotiations to end the near 6-month war have sputtered. And watch this space for more announcements coming next week because we are going to apply measures like have never been seen in the history of economic isolation of a country, Bessent said in a Thursday night interview with Newsmax Rob Schmidt. So again, maximum pressure, utilizing weapons of war, utilizing economic weaponry to bring Iran to heel. Okay, so what are we seeing all this over here? Look over here, wash the dog or wag the dog, right? What are we seeing all this for? Well, because they're passing other stuff that you're not noticing. And there's a lot that they're fighting back to get you to notice because they don't want this sleeper stuff to go through. Senate passes a cash rounding bill, which drew some attention, but should have drawn a lot more. And so we're moving closer and closer to that cashless society everybody's worried about. And the U.S. Senate has passed a bill providing a federal framework for how businesses can round cash transactions given the decline of one-cent coins since the government stopped minting pennies last year. The Friday night vote on the Common Sense Act came after senators agreed to an amendment by Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren that requires the Treasury Department to notify Congress of any future currency discontinuation, along with the transition plan, according to 2 retail industry trade associations. So that makes sense. If you're going to make any more changes to the cash system, if you're going to make any more changes to the way in which we all function, then there should be a plan implemented that helps, average Americans understand how that's going to work. It makes sense. So, good job on Warren's part for putting that up. Sometimes the lefties, hey, you know what I mean? Even a blind monkey finds a banana once in a while. No, I'm teasing. No, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being funny. All right. But it's getting serious. Things are getting serious economically in the United States. So pray for those in the United States. Yeah, David, you're not a big fan. I know. That's true. David's not a big fan of Miss Warren. So anyway, but there are some definite economic signs that we need to be paying attention to. And one of those, of course, is store closing. So whenever we see stuff like this going on, guys, U.S. grocery store chain to close 60 underperforming stores with 2 in California that are already strained for grocery supply and so forth. And one of America's biggest supermarket chains is closing dozens of stores, including locations in California, even as it goes on a massive acquisition spree. So Kroger, the Cincinnati-based grocery giant, has been on a multi-year move to shutter more than 60 underperforming stores nationwide, shifting resources toward locations it considers stronger bets. And so, again, folks, it's got nothing to do with whether or not it will be good for the economic situation in that particular area or region. Nope, they don't care about that. What they care about are dollars and cents, right, guys? So, once again, we're seeing a shutdown of some of the critical infrastructure that many people depend on, regardless of the economics. And as a result, now we're going to have impact. And this is the kind of thing that sneaks up on you. It doesn't hit you right away. It's little things like this that start to accumulate over time. And of course, the U.S. retail market is definitely feeling it. It's expected to post the largest drop in more than a year. Americans unexpectedly cut their spending in July by the biggest drop since May of 2025. Maybe, I don't know, let me guess. Might it had something to do with the price of gas? I don't know. Maybe that might have had something to do with it. People are starting to realize that, hey, they got to start cutting back. Americans unexpectedly cut their spending. And of course, they weren't planning on that. They just expect the party to just keep on going. Retail sales fell 0.6% last month, marking the biggest decrease since May 2025, compared with a revised gain of 0.2% in June, according to the Commerce Department's data released on Friday. And the drop in spending raised concern among some economists about the resiliency of consumers who have powered the economy forward despite nagging inflation and soaring gasoline prices. And I think this is a lot of craziness. Unless you're putting out brand new credit cards and giving consumers brand new options, you can forget it. People are going to tighten up right now. The economy has been hard on a lot of folks. I know a lot of people that are struggling just to put food on the table. I know a lot of folks that are working multiple jobs, that are doing everything they can to simply provide for their family. Speaking of which, by the way, folks, if you are in one of those underemployed situations and you have any technical skill, phone skill, communication skills, web skills of any kind, give us a call, contact us, reach out to us. David Colon, raise your hand out there, reach out to us. We certainly have plenty of positions for people with skills willing to work. Now, if you're just looking to sit, we can't help you. But if you're willing to work, put your hand to that plow, then come on in. We've got plenty of different opportunities for you. So, those of you in the remnant, don't hesitate. Give us a call, reach out to us. Don't sit there suffering. Don't die of thirst on the edge of the river. Right, David? Come on, somebody. Don't die of thirst on the edge of the river. Right? Put your cup in. Put your cup in. Get your cup in there, boy. Don't die. Don't die when you can multiply. I had somebody this week that'd rather die than just cooperate with the things of the kingdom. I couldn't understand it. Simple things. And people, unfortunately, well, sometimes, I don't know. I think it's too much AI. I think it's too much AI. What do you think, David? You think they're consuming too much AI? I think AI is turning them into slaves. I really do. You guys didn't pick that up. I kept talking about that. It's one of the reasons why we developed some of the things we did, and it's pushing back against some of the control mechanisms that are coming out. And frankly, folks, it's a race. And what are they racing toward? Well, they're racing to control. That's exactly what they're racing toward, control. It's a war, and you better be paying attention. U.S. to tell partners they must pick sides. Why is there sides? Why is there sides in a technology? Can somebody tell me what their sides are in a technology? It's just a tech, right? But now it's picking sides like it's a war in an AI race. Race to where? Where are we going? Where's the finish line? And what is it that marks completion? Yeah, you and I have the same question, so we're going to keep asking, right, as we go along, because we know they'll drop some hints. The U.S. is preparing to tell dozens of countries they must pick sides in the artificial intelligence race, with China warning they will be excluded from U.S.-led AI coalition if they also sign up for Beijing's competing framework, according to a U.S. official. And an internal draft reviewed by Reuters. Washington launched the Pax Silica initiative last year to secure supply chains for AI models, semiconductors, and critical minerals amid a fierce technology rivalry with Beijing. About 24 countries have joined, including Kazakhstan, a key potential source for critical minerals that has also joined China's coalition, as well as close U.S. allies such as Japan, Australia, and South Korea. So you're asking them to split their market, to pick one side or the other. This is unprecedented world policy or foreign policy. I don't know that it will last. It probably won't, because it's dumb. Just saying. It's dumb. So there's that. Not everybody does the math. Some do it faster than others. Go ahead and do the math. Take your time, and then you'll realize, oh, this is really a bad idea. Yeah. They need to drop that whole race thing, unless they're inferring that they're racing somewhere. And then we're going to ask new questions as to where you're racing, why you're racing there, and who exactly do you think you're going to control with your artificial intelligence? Or didn't you think we knew that it was artificial? We already have real intelligence. So let's keep that working little buggies over there and watch where you go with that. Trump family is backing now a crypto firm. World Liberty gets conditional bank charter. And this is big news, folks. So those who thought crypto was going to disappear, float away, become a nothing burger are wrong. I mean, I've been saying this for years. This is a digital world. We're moving more in this direction. They don't have a choice. They have to fix big problems, and the analog world doesn't have the answers. So expecting us to go back to bag and paper isn't going to happen no matter how many Johnny Depp movies you watch. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency conditionally approved World Liberty Trust's company's application for a national trust bank charter. And World Liberty Financial says an entity affiliated with Trump and family members owns 38% of the company. So they stand to make a significant income. And the charter would let World Liberty bring stablecoin services in-house instead of relying on third parties such as BitGo. And this is huge, folks. A federal financial regulator has made it happen. And so the banking charter will enable them to move forward in this area. The charter application process won't be fully complete until the company completes additional steps, but they have a favorable administration. So this looks really strong, and it certainly indicates the direction that we're going economically. So those of you that were running away from crypto thinking, oh no, it's the devil. Well, it might be, but it's going to be around for a while. So, so were the scanners in Walmart when they come out. They were from the devil too, just so you know. It's all from the devil. Yes, we know. We know, honey. We know. Okay. we know they're from the devil, and you're probably right. But in the meantime, we've got to function in this world because these things tend to take over. And now we're seeing some things that are happening in terms of recalls. This has been very disturbing. The FDA announces recall of food sold at Target, Trader Joe's, Walmart, in more than 26 states. So we saw this hit really hard last week. The summer of 2026 hasn't been great for produce fans. So those that are in the produce aisle, you're feeling it. This is why we have to do this, folks. This is why we have to put locations around the country and grow hydroponic, aquaponic food that we know has good quality that we can distribute among the remnant. Those of you that want to be a part of that, again, reach out to us. First, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration published a recall notice of iceberg lettuce in July from the company Taylor Farms due to a multi-state outbreak of GI illness linked to the parasite Cyclospora. Then the FDA next reported that as of August 5th, 345 people across 27 states have been infected with Salmonella javiana, an outbreak linked to jalapeno peppers distributed by Coast Citrus Distributors. Now additional products containing jalapenos have been recalled, and you may have bought them at Hannaford, Kroger, Stop & Shop, Target, Trader Joe's, Walmart, or Whole Foods. So head on over to remnantwatch.com, look up that story, guys, and double check that. Make sure that you check your cupboards and check your refrigerator and what have you to ensure you don't have a product that may potentially be tainted with salmonella. You don't want to find that out the hard way. Trust me. If you've ever had food poisoning, if you've ever had any kind of distress in that area, you really don't want to repeat that, and it just isn't worth it. So get rid of it. Moving back overseas for a quick moment, Israelis are of course second only to Russians, and this is of course coming out of the UK. There's a very, very difficult time going on in the UK right now. The pushback against Israel and the Israelis is not unprecedented. What'd you say? Not unprecedented. Wait a second. What are you talking about? Well, as it turns out, in the 1600s, they had to repeal a law to allow Jews to live in London. Because it was outlawed for centuries. So this ancient feeling seems to be returning. Almost half of the Britons think their country should allow in fewer Israelis or none at all. Survey results significantly more negative toward Israel than 10 years ago. So there's a big push against it. And I wonder if that has something to do with a shift in UK population. How many of you think that might be the case? How many of you seeing some UK population shift that doesn't look like what you would typically expect to see when you think of the UK, right? When you think of that part of the world, that might not be what you were expecting, and yet that's what we have. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are we seeing right now? Well, we're seeing, I think, an absolute change in the way the world functions, and I think that we all had better start paying attention as quickly as possible. And one of the ways in which we're seeing change is, they reversed Roe versus Wade, right? Remember that, guys? And so those of you that were pro-life, hello, pro-life, we're all for life, right? And those of you that were there, announcing individual states implementing what I think are even worse things that are going on now. So this is really bad. Democratic Governor Maureen Healey signed sweeping Massachusetts bill allowing abortions. You read that right. Can you believe that, guys? I just really have struggled with the justifications that I've heard for this. And it's the 10th state to remove gestational age limits. So the 10th state that is no longer concerned with when such a procedure would occur. So again, we have got wow on our screen, right? And I can't even read the rest of this because it turns my stomach so much. But you guys can go on to remnantwatch.com and read the rest of that story. And I think you now have your prayer assignment because, wow, again, whew, we've got some wild things going on in our nation. How many heard about this? This was just canceled, but I tell you, this is almost done. The governor of Texas had to jump in as Dallas-Fort Worth Airport finally dropped a plan for wash stations for Muslim travelers amid backlash and Abbott order. So Abbott, the governor of Texas, had to actually step in. Washington State wash stations, like the ones the project proposed, are commonly used to perform wudu, a ritual purification practice in Islam. And so they were going to put them in the traveler stations in, of course, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And the pushback was severe. But what that tells you is the change that is going on in America. And this is something that I continue to point out. And this is why it is important for us as the remnant, as the household of faith, as those who believe in Messiah, to continue to unite, continue to do things in a unified way, continue to band together in many of the efforts that we do in your economic work, in your labor, in your living, in your helping one another. I find so many of our brethren, and when I talk to them about what they're doing, and they're spending their whole day helping, well, not their brethren. They're helping other people. So we got to be careful about that. We've got to spend some time, some energy with our brethren. Otherwise, where are you going after the persecution ramps up, right? So we know that's coming. Always need to be preparing for coming persecution. There are two massive wildfires that are converging to rip across California and Nevada as homes are razed and evacuations are ordered. So how many are paying attention to what's going on in the U.S. with regard to these fires? It's incredible. And I got to tell you, the more I look at this stuff, the more I'm just literally just astonished at how fast your world can change. And a raging inferno is spreading at the California-Nevada border after two wildfires merged Tuesday morning, creating a massive blaze, spanning more than 44,000 acres. The Bug Fire and the Fred Mountain Fire burning north of Reno, which already has a serious drought situation, a water shortage already going on in Nevada. So pray for our friends in Nevada. This is a horrible, horrible scene, a dystopian, scary scene that you're seeing. Firefighters are scrambling to build containment lines around the northern, eastern, and southern edges of the sprawling burn, and it is bad up in that part of the country. And again, it's not the only one. So there's many fires that are going on throughout the country. So we know that. Nevertheless, our hearts go out to those that are in this part of the world because, wow, that looks rough. And there's other things that are happening as well. And these are the kinds of things we like to pay attention to because the scripture tells us in Matthew 24 that there'll be earthquakes in diverse places, things like that. And we continue to see more and more shaking. In fact, we had one right down south of us in Douglas, Arizona. Tourists were fleeing and homes wrecked as earthquake hits popular Spanish holiday spot. So that wasn't the only earthquake we're about to cover here. But the point is that we saw it and it continues to expand. We continue to see more and more earthquakes throughout the earth. A huge earthquake has hit part of Spain, popular with tourists, leaving a trail of destruction with panicking holidaymakers running from their hotels. It was a bad scene, and I won't cover that. We're running out of time, but you're welcome to go over to remnantwatch.com and take a look at that story. It was interesting. And by the way, I don't know if you were paying attention to this, but the same things that are happening in the United States with some of the drought and some of the fire lanes that we're now having and so forth. Well, that's happening in Europe as well. New satellite images show Europe's disappearing rivers due to drought. So they're experiencing some of the same changes in their climate as well. Half of Europe's land is experiencing drought, impacting river levels across the continent. And the question is, what's causing this? Drought conditions have worsened across Central and Western Europe since the start of the summer, with southern England, northern Italy, and parts of Central Europe among the hardest hit areas, according to Global Drought Observatory. About half of Europe's land area is experiencing drought, with 9% reaching the alert level, including southern Germany, Hungary, Romania, Austria, and the Czech Republic and Slovakia, according to the combined drought indicator for mid-July. So we're seeing continued dry conditions going on throughout Europe, which mirrors what we're seeing, of course, here in the United States. And what is happening here, folks? I don't know. We're seeing a massive change in our the northern hemisphere. Changes are pretty dramatic. Well, they're really dramatic on the southern hemisphere as well. So we're just seeing Earth changes that are dramatic. Earth's changing, guys. It's changing. It's doing one of those, who knows, changes, okay, that it sometimes does. And it happens, right? Rome's drought exposes a 2,000-year-old bridge. Look at this, folks. Usually hidden beneath the Tiber River, and now it's been exposed. And so, which is exciting. After weeks of extreme heat and a little rain, the Tiber in Rome has receded enough to reveal parts of a nearly 2,000-year-old bridge from the city's imperial era. And while the site may seem like a rare archaeological marvel, it is a warning sign of a deepening water crisis. So again, another water crisis, not here, not in North America, over in Europe. So again, we're seeing this continuing theme across this time period. Are we heading into a time period where water is going to become the new premium commodity? Stand by. It may very well be. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're also seeing, again, more of these recalls. This time, it involved eggs. Did you guys know about this? FDA upgrades egg recall to its highest level of salmonella, sickens dozens across several states. And again, some of this could be very easily just as a result of poor hygiene, but it just doesn't, it's not worth it. So it's always best to go ahead and process the recalls. Weeks after recall was issued for more than 1.5 million cartons of 1 dozen eggs due to the risk of salmonella, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has upgraded the recall to the highest risk level. And on Wednesday, the recall was moved up to Class 1, which signifies a situation in which there is a reasonable probability that the use or exposure to a volatile product will cause serious adverse health consequences or death. So again, not worth it. Is there a fear being put into our food supply? It sure looks that way. And we talked about this a bit back. Weren't 100% sure what the goal was, other than to make people very concerned, and definitely adding a lot of anxiety to the air. Speaking of anxiety, I'll tell you what, the Taiwanese are starting to get anxious, seeing as the United States had to pull its last carrier from the Asian waters. And so the U.S. team is sent to Taiwan to train Coast Guards. So to try to make up for that, and that's what they're doing, they're going to train the Coast Guards amid surge in mainland Chinese activity. So they had to pull the aircraft carrier because the Abraham Lincoln, in case you didn't know this, has got people threatening to jump off the ship. They've been there too long. So they've got to move another aircraft carrier into place, and this is the situation. 2-week training program follows a sharp increase in China Coast Guard operations around the island. And the United States has sent a team of Coast Guard to train their Taiwanese counterparts as Beijing steps out its presence east of the island. So we're seeing them preparing for a conflict. Taiwan's Coast Guard administration said on Friday that its personnel were taking part in a 2-week training program led by U.S. instructors. So we see that Scripture tells us that there will be wars and rumors of wars, and see that you be not troubled. I believe this principle remains in the earth, regardless of the eschatological timeline. You need to remember that no matter what time you live in, there's always wars and rumors of wars. There's always the potential for conflicts. This is earth. Get used to that. So stop thinking that this is an unusual thing. However, there are certain activities that you can do that will stoke a war, that will create conflict. And one of those activities is one of the things that was pointed out by Erdogan, if you remember earlier, where he was talking about provocations on holy sites, right? Well, according to this report of the Times of Israel, Jewish prayer books reportedly were allowed on the Temple Mount for the first time. So this is now unprecedented, and that means a change of the status quo, which is exactly what Erdogan was referring to. And worshippers say police permitted them to ascend with Sidurim. Right-wing journalist Argan Segal posts photo of men praying at site while reading from their prayer books, which up to this point was illegal. And so Jewish worshippers were reportedly allowed to use prayer books at the Temple Mount on Sunday, marking the latest in a series of blows to a status quo arrangement that bans non-Muslim prayer at the Flashpoint Jerusalem holy site, while in the past, police would eject or detain Jewish visitors caught praying on the Temple Mount. The police has largely fallen to the wayside, or the policy rather, over the past 3 years under the National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has repeatedly demanded that police allow Jews to pray there. So the pressure has finally yielded, and now we're seeing changes of the status quo. What other changes might we see? Well, we've already seen the threat, because, of course, this is changing the status quo of religious control over those religious sites. And again, this has been managed by Jordan up to this point. So Jordan has been the principal governor, if you will, of the Temple Mount area. And of course, while it's in Israel, Israel did that as a peace measure with its neighbors. And so now allowing prayer with prayer books on the Temple Mount site, which may not seem like a big deal to most of you, is a massive big deal to them. So we need to understand that. And there are things that may portend to war coming from that part of the world. Moving back over to the United States, we've got a problem on this side of the water. And I got to tell you, it's a war that we were supposed to be fighting for our children. It looks like we didn't do so well. Berkeley math professor is sounding an alarm on liberal test blind policies, warns many students are badly behind. So again, we watched students struggle through material they were expected to master years early, said Berkeley professor Stankova. And of course, the standards do not change. And so when they get to college, they don't coddle them there. So those high schools that were letting them through are sending in bad students. A Berkeley mathematics professor is sounding the alarm that many students are woefully, look at this, that's bad, woefully unprepared when they arrive at college, because the University of California system's progressive test blind policies have proven disastrous. 3 days a week, I stand in front of a lecture hall with 500 to 1,400 students, and by the second week of the semester, I already know who's in trouble. Isn't that something? Some students are 5 to 8 years behind in mathematics. Read that again. This is really rough, and I'm telling you, the rest of the world isn't like this. They take their stuff very seriously, especially Europe, Eastern Europe, Asia, even Africa. They take their stuff very seriously. America, we got a problem here. Office hours that should be spent discussing integrals instead become lessons on fractions and basic algebra you would expect students to learn in middle school. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but when I went to school, I took Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, Trigonometry. So these were the lessons that we had to go through. I stopped just short of calculus because I just was bored at that point. But I'm not kidding. I didn't need the credits, and I was bored at it because I continued to excel at math. However, I think that it was because, and I think it's because back when I was young, which is ages ago, sorry, regardless of how I look. And the fact is that they gave us math very early, and you were required. In fact, that determined the classroom, not just whether you would graduate to the next class, but even which class you'd be in, from 4.1 to 4.2, 4.3, all the way down, elementary and then up in grades. At least that's the way it was when I was young. So there was a sort of subtle pressure to perform well, so you would get in sort of the better classes, and we have lost that. We have lost it big time. Now we have people saying, I'm just not good at math. No, not allowed. Oh, I'm just not good. Well, that's why you're not good, because you keep saying things like that. So we've got to turn this around, folks. And this is where parents have to step in, help their children, take away the calculator, take away the phone, take away these things, make them do the math. It's part of deliverance, by the way. Did you know that? When people have demons cast out of them, did you hear me? Listen carefully. When you have demons cast out of you, this is one of the things that are done by deliverance workers, is make them do algebra, make them do high math, because it restores the functionality of the brain, which demonic forces dull or stupefy. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Yeah. Okay. So they make them dumb. You ever heard of a dumb spirit? Mashiach casts out dumb spirits. We don't entertain or keep dumb spirits. Okay. Get out of here, you dumb spirit. Arrest made after 5 shot at Virginia State University days before classes begin. So we continue to see more and more of these kinds of horrific events, folks, because again, we need a resurgence of intercessory prayer in this nation like never before. And 5 victims were transported to hospitals. One initially listed as having life-threatening injuries has been upgraded to critical condition, as the police have reported. And again, a man was arrested and is in connection with the shooting, but nevertheless, people are damaged. And this is all demonic. There is no other spirit that would inspire a person to take a weapon and shoot it at non-attacking, non-threatening, unarmed civilians. There's just no other spirit but a demonic, evil spirit that would move someone to do certain things. And this is what we're looking at here. So this is why, again, you, the saints, the chosen, have to pray and intercede and cover areas and stand in faith, because these demons are running loose. Let's take a look at this story, which proves my point even further. A drunk mother killed her 3-year-old baby with a hairdryer. I don't know how else to make my point, but to just go ahead and show you this. This is on Remnant Watch. You can go ahead and read it. It is very graphic, so that's as far as I'm going to go tonight with this story. So you can go on over to Remnant Watch and read the rest of it. But that is the level of insanity, the level of psychopathy, the level of disconnection from reality that we're seeing. And it's not just the edges of society like it used to be. Remember that, guys? When it was just crazy people over there, and you could almost tell the crazies. You could tell the person that was talking to themselves. Not anymore. Now they're functioning lunatics out there. It's crazy what we're seeing, and folks, it's not getting any better. So that's why, again, we need to be united people. And again, go ahead and take a look at that at Remnant Watch. I'm not going to go ahead and talk any further about that. Oh, we've got an earthquake story here in Indonesia. A quake struck Flores region early on Saturday, prompting thousands to seek higher ground for fear of a tsunami. And again, a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck eastern Indonesia has killed at least 47 people. So this is now, how many 7-pointers have we seen, guys, over the last few weeks? We saw one in Venezuela. We saw one in Colombia, right? We also had one in Vanuatu, or whatever that's called. But here's a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck in Indonesia, which is a heavily populated area in the earth. Rescuers have yet to reach Nageko, the area closest to the epicenter, because roads were blocked by landslides and communications disrupted. So this is a rough situation for an already generally poor population in Indonesia. And so I can only imagine not only the loss of life, but the economic damage that something like this does. And many times people only look at the physical damage of buildings and so forth, but they don't realize all the employment that's disrupted and all the other things that now come as a result of that disaster. So this is why, again, we need to be much more aware as we go forward. So many things that are now affecting decision-making going forward. We're hearing about these flock cameras and how that they were the subject of a lot of attack. In fact, civilians around the world, especially England, boy, they're really attacking these flock cameras. And here in the United States, they're certainly starting to get some very serious pushback. And my understanding is the Supreme Court has now reaffirmed that in order to take some of this information, they need a warrant. So this is pushing back against some of this expanded technological rollout. New tech adds phone tracking to license plate readers. So again, they didn't tell us that when they were putting out the cameras. They weren't saying that. Did they tell you all that? No, they were just talking about license plate readers, right? That's all they said. But now they're saying, well, there's more that we can do. Imagine you share a ride to work with the same colleague most mornings. As it passes by a license plate reader, the camera records a car, which can be linked through vehicle records to its registered owner. Beside it, another sensor detects signals broadcast by devices traveling nearby, such as your phone and your colleague's smartwatch. Oh boy, it's going to get harder to do shady business. I tell you what, they're going to know what everybody's doing. And in fact, one of the things they found was that the police officers were using these flock cameras to track their love interests. Yeah, to keep an eye on their wives and girlfriends and exes and people they shouldn't be watching. And there was like a bunch. There was like 20 something guys. Remember, there was, I think it was a report last week we did that was some 20 some odd guys had gotten arrested. Can you imagine that, folks? Gotten arrested for illegally using the flock cameras to track people. So again, they arrest the people, right? So arrest the guy who's doing it. So they go, no, you naughty, naughty boy. You go bad, you bad boy. But they keep the capability. So they punish the guy using the capability, but don't remove the capability. Did you catch that little bait and switch, guys? So they're like, no, you can't use it if you get caught. We have to prosecute you to make an example. Are you going to turn it off? Oh, no, we're not going to turn it off. What do you mean we're going to turn it off? We didn't say we're going to turn it off. We're just going to punish anybody who gets caught using it. Wait, so if you don't get caught, well, if you don't get caught. But if you get caught, we got to make an example of you. That's what it looked like to me. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments what you thought. Excuse me. The Kansas father kills 4 children and his wife before turning the gun on himself. And that's what authorities are reporting right now. Children were identified as girls 9, 5, 3, and a boy 7. Can you imagine such a horrific event? What would inspire this? What spirit would inspire a father, okay, who's supposed to be the chief protector, to use the weapon meant to be used to protect the family on the family and kill the family? The Kansas man, who police said was previously contacted for, quote, aggressive behavior, end quote, fatally shot his 4 young children and their mother before he turned the gun on himself Tuesday, authorities said. Many times what happens is they have committed abuse. They've had committed some kind of crime. And the victims are now threatening. Maybe mother says, I'm going to call the police. You hit me. That's it. You're going to jail. And what she doesn't know is that threat right there, her saying that, triggers that man into a rage. And the next thing you know, he's killing everybody, including himself, because he knows he's going to jail, right? So again, be really careful. Domestic violence is the number one worst call for law enforcement to answer. And for that very reason, because it is incredibly dangerous in domestic situations. The emotions are incredibly high. Going over to Hawaii, we have 1 dead and homes swept away as Hurricane Layla brings in heavy rain to Hawaii's Big Island. And so we do have a hurricane hitting the Hawaiian Islands. Forecasters warn of life-threatening flooding, mudslides, and damaging winds with up to 25 inches of rain possible at higher elevations. You read that right. 25 inches of rain. 25 inches. That's a lot of rain, folks. That is a lot of rain that is coming down and has come down in this part of the world. And again, we continue to see natural disasters, the earth responding in ways that we just have no way of anticipating. And so, folks, we're going to continue to see, I believe, more and more shaking, more and more things that are happening in the earth that are reflective of the days that we're in. Okay. And it's going to continue to be more conflict, I believe, that we are going to continue to see. I don't see any end in sight to the conflicts that keep coming. A couple more stories I want to cover. Speaking of conflict, we haven't talked about this in a while, but popping back over to look at the Ukraine war. And Ukraine launches hundreds of drones in one of its largest aerial attacks in the war against Russia. So this isn't going away. This has stayed a major problem. And as you can see, significant damage being done by Ukraine. That's a significant plume. Ukraine launched one of its largest ever area drone attacks in the war against Russia on Sunday, deploying hundreds of drones across multiple regions, resulting in 6 deaths and damaging infrastructure, including the Wildberries warehouse in Podolsk. Ukraine attacked the warehouse belonging to Russia's online retailer Wildberries in a huge overnight air attack that included more than 800 drones, Russian authorities said. And this is like their Amazon, so this is a big deal. The Russian Defense Ministry said it had destroyed 822 drones overnight and the 600 directed toward the capital. And Moscow does not confirm the total number of drones fired by Kiev in its daily updates. But obviously the damage was significant. So we are continuing to see more and more of this conflict in Eastern Europe. Pray for our folks over there. I'm making more friends in Eastern Europe. I'm making friends on that part of the world. Okay, so now we got to pray for our friends. So now I've got friends there. You know what that means? Now we got to call. We got to call for help. We got to call for aid. We got to call for support for them. Why? Because they're in harm's way. And it's one thing when they're just strangers and you don't know anybody. It's another thing when you could put a face with a name, make friends with people behind those enemy lines. Maybe that'll make you pray for them more. It's a good idea, don't you think? I think so. And our last story, 4,000 years. We're hiding this tomb hidden under a brush for 4,000 years. A giant's tomb emerges in Sardinia, Italy. Ooh, The plot thickens. For nearly 4 millennia. An ancient burial monument in Sardinia remained concealed under brush and soil. An archaeologist finally exposed the structure and identified it as a giant's tomb dating back almost 4,000 years. Go on over to remnantwatch.com. Make sure you like that page, share it with your friends on social media, share it with your friends all over the place, and encourage them to join us for these weekly news updates. We are always thankful for every one of you that are part of this house, part of what we are doing around here. You know, I want to thank all of you who are not afraid. It's easy to be fearful, especially in these days. It's easy to look for an exit, look for a quick relief. But I want to encourage those of you that have courage in this hour, that understand that this is the day we were born for. And if you have courage in this moment, you're reaching out to your brother, your sister, you're standing in faith in this moment, I want to encourage you and I want to thank you. I'm very proud of all of you who are part of the house of the strong and the very courageous. That's our report for tonight. Thank you again for joining us. Good evening.